one of the things that's been fascinating me lately is this the footprints in White Sands, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's hundreds of thousands of footprints there. There was a whole society of people that lived on this ancient lake that's now dry, right? It's a dried up lake bed. And the footprints of those people and the animals that they lived with are all there, preserved. And it's now been very successfully dated to be around like 23,000 years old. And it wasn't too long ago that scientists believed that nobody was here at that time. No humans were here.
Mm-hmm.
They thought they came over the Bering Land Bridge or whatever. And
Like the first humans ever to get onto the American continent was like between 12 and 15,000 years ago, is what they thought.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Before
called
that,
Clovis
no
first
humans
hypothesis.
had ever been here ever. Right?
How did they? So when they found these footprints in White Sands, how did they date them
It was
to
something-
20,000 years ago?
It was something having to do with seeds that were in the, like, at that time, the sediments that were, what's the word? At the same time as the footprints were made, have seeds of plants that were flowering or whatever at that time, and and the seeds are like pushed down into the mud by the footprint,
Oh, wow.
and so they were able to carbon date those, something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, there's a
exact-
couple of other. They have multiple lines of evidence now because people question it. They're like, "That's too early."
Yeah, it was debated for
Yeah.
a while, and it's pretty conclusive at this point.
How big are the footprints? Like, do they think that the people looked similar to us, like same size as us, or do they think they were like small or big or?
Well, the
I
famous
didn't
ones
see
are
anything about that.
just
Okay.
they're like they think they were either like teenager or a young woman.
Yeah,
They're
there's
implying
ones-
they're a little smaller than
a little smaller.
Yeah.
There's one set that particularly fascinates me, which is they think it's either a young man or a woman, and they're walking very brisk walk, right, really fast along. They say the banks of the lake. In other words, it's a straight line. The line goes for a mile and doesn't deviate more than a meter from straight. So a very straight line. So the idea that just walking in the mud along this lake shore, the set of tracks goes out and occasionally stops, and then there's a tiny little set of tracks that circle around like a child. And then it's just her tracks, and then again a rest stop and the child. So she's carrying
She carried the kid.
a child, a toddler or something like that, really fast along the bank of this lake. And after she passes, a giant sloth, comes by and arrives at her set of tracks and then stands up on its hind legs and looks around and then gets back down on all fours and keeps going, crosses her tracks. Another occasion, a mammoth goes across her tracks. And then a short time later, she comes back along the same set of tracks, walking beside her own tracks, now no longer brisk walk, and no child. Whoa. And those tracks were not trampled by thousands of animals in the days and months and years ahead into the future. No, something happened very shortly after those tracks were made that caused them to be buried and only uncovered
preserved.
recently. Yeah, 23,000 years later. What was that? You know what I'm saying?
Fucking
That is
crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff just fascinates me. So, I mean, like, how many times...
What was she doing with the kid?
What was going on? I mean, it's like...
So a giant sloth came along and stole her baby?
No, it just encountered her tracks, probably smelled her scent, stood up on its hind legs, looked around, but she had already passed.
Yeah.
But it's just
Mammoth
cool
too.
seeing-
Mammoth just walks by. He doesn't care.
Yeah, mammoth doesn't care.
Yeah.
Maybe he was being ridden by it.
I-
Then
you know,
she came back, though.
Without
She
the
came
kid.
back
Yeah.
Without the kid.
Like the idea, like, the first thing I thought was she was bringing the kid to some other family on the other side of the lake or something like that, right? She's delivering, she's like, here's your child.
But going really fast.
But
that's
she's
the thing.
running.
Like
Yeah.
That's
practically
weird.
running
Yeah.
with this child.
Yeah.
And then having to
take a break.
put the kid down and it runs around,
Yeah.
pick it back up, boom, keep going.
So she's like in a hurry.
Well, a mile is all they've uncovered.
Yeah.
We don't know how far she actually went.
And the crazy part is it was preserved immediately after that.
Yeah, because there's so many animals that live along this, that live at this lake that if nothing drastic had happened, those footprints should have been destroyed. By other animals and birds and wave
Rainfall
action
and wave
from
action and
from the
sedimentation.
shoreline.
Yeah.
So something happened. and they were preserved. And I mean, it had to have been fairly quickly after she made those tracks. That's the thing that gets me about it.
What could have happened?
If there was a significant rise event in the lake, therefore no more animals were walking along that part to disturb, no more waves would ever disturb that area of the sediment, and the lake just suddenly became deeper,
Yeah.
then every year the lake varves that would form from the natural sediments that are just sort of raining in the water all the time, leaves and whatever.
They'd fill in the footprints.
Eventually
that
fill
preserve
in the
them.
footprints. And then later, if the lake dried up, there might be some sediment on top that dries up, but they would never be disturbed down there.
Yeah.
So that could have happened.
And that's like a lot of the footprints that they find, they can tell that they're actually still under sediment, and they can you can break it off there and get, or just scan it and see it without actually disturbing it. But they say that like at certain mornings when all the environmental conditions are right, like there's dew on the ground or whatever, you can see these little spots on the surface that are showing you that there's a hidden footprint below.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by the way the water collects or the dew or something. It's like a little slight temperature change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at some of the stuff that Randall goes and looks at in the like on the West Coast, the Scablands, yeah, and those how he talks about what were they, like 100 megatons of water flowing through the earth at like hundreds of miles an hour when the comets hit and melted the ice caps. Like if the water was rushing at that volume at that speed, it would just, I would imagine everything would just be fucking vaporized.
Ripped it up.
Yeah.
Just ripping up everything in its path. Yeah, I mean, and then of course, you'd have tumbling boulders following all that, and they're just grinding the surface up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are huge potholes in this, like, it's 50, 60 feet across, this giant hole in the ground, drilled into basalt.
From just a whirlpool.
By a whirlpool that was in the water during the flood.
Boulders and gravel in there, just
like acting like a big drill.
Right.
It's nuts.
God, that place is insane.
You guys went there?
Yeah, we've been 3 times, I think. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
That's so
Scablands.
crazy, man.